When 12-year-old Mateo Silva walked into the biggest building in the city that Saturday morning, he had no idea his life was about to change forever. His mom, Rosa, worked as a janitor, there cleaning floors while rich people in fancy suits walked by without even seeing her. But when the million-dollar elevator broke down and angry CEO Harrison Blackwood couldn't find anyone to fix it, he did something shocking. He looked at the quiet boy hiding behind his mother and said, "You, fix this elevator, now!" What Mr. Blackwood didn't know was that this wasn't just any janitor's son. What he didn't know was that 13 years ago, he had destroyed the life of the most brilliant engineer in the world. And what he definitely didn't know was that the boy he was being cruel to carried a secret that would bring his whole empire crashing down. As Mateo walked toward that broken elevator, two questions hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Who was Mateo's father, and why had Mr. Blackwood spent years being cruel to the woman he loved? What would happen when the truth finally came out? The answers would shock everyone, especially Harrison Blackwood himself. The smell of lemon cleaner filled the air as 12-year-old Mateo Silva sat cross-legged on the cold marble floor of Pinnacle Tower's supply closet. His dark eyes watched his mother, Rosa, push her heavy cart down the hallway, her cleaning rags perfectly folded, and her spray bottles lined up like soldiers. "Stay here, mijo," Rosa had whispered earlier that morning. "Mrs. Garcia got sick, so you have to come to work with me today. But you must be quiet, okay?" Mateo nodded and pulled out his worn notebook. Inside were drawings of machines and inventions that most adults couldn't understand. He sketched quietly, the sounds of the busy office building humming around him like a lullaby. Rosa Silva had worked as head janitor at Pinnacle Tower for 8 long years. Every morning at 5 o'clock, she unlocked the doors of the city's tallest building and began her work. 60 floors of offices, bathrooms, and conference rooms all sparkled because of her tired hands. Mateo loved watching his mom work. She moved like a dancer, cleaning each surface with care and pride. When other people walked past her, they didn't even look down. But Mateo saw everything. How hard she worked, how much she cared, how her back ached at the end of each day. The building was extra busy this Saturday morning. Important people in expensive suits rushed around, talking loudly on their phones. Mateo could hear them through the thin walls. "The investors from Japan are flying in today." This meeting could change everything. Mr. Blackwood is nervous as a cat. Harrison Blackwood was the CEO of Pinnacle Industries. Mateo had seen him a few times, a tall, thin man with cold gray eyes and silver hair slicked back perfectly. He never smiled. He never said thank you. And he never, ever looked at the janitors who kept his building clean. Suddenly, a terrible sound echoed through the building. Clang! Screech! Thud! The main elevator had stopped working. Mateo jumped up from his hiding spot and peeked around the corner. The elevator doors were stuck half open, and angry voices filled the lobby. "This is impossible," someone shouted. "The Japanese investors will be here in 2 hours. What are we going to do?" Then came a voice that made everyone go quiet. It was cold and sharp, like winter wind. "What is the meaning of this?" Harrison Blackwood stormed out of his corner office on the ground floor. His face was red with anger, and his hands were clenched into fists. His expensive shoes clicked loudly on the marble floor as he marched toward the broken elevator. I have the most important meeting of my career in exactly 2 hours, Mr. Blackwood said, through gritted teeth. Investors are flying here from Tokyo to see our new building. And you're telling me our elevator is broken? The security guard, Mr. Peterson, stepped forward nervously. Sir, I've already called the repair company. They said they can't get here until Monday morning. Monday? Mr. Blackwood's voice got even louder. Monday? Do you people understand what this means? Rosa hurried over with her cleaning cart, the wheels squeaking softly. Matteo's heart beat faster as he watched his mom approach the angry CEO. Excuse me, Mr. Blackwood, Rosa said in her quiet, respectful voice. I could call my cousin Miguel. He knows about fixing things. Maybe he could help? Mr. Blackwood spun around and glared at Rosa like she was a bug on his shoe. Your cousin? Some amateur handyman? This is a $1 million elevator system, not a broken toaster. Rosa's cheeks turned pink, but her voice stayed calm. I'm sorry, sir. I just wanted to help. If I wanted your opinion, I would have asked for it, Mr. Blackwood snapped. Just go back to mopping floors where you belong. Matteo felt anger burn in his chest. How dare this mean man talk to his mother that way? Rosa worked harder than anyone in this building. She deserved respect, not cruelty. That's when Mr. Blackwood noticed Matteo peeking out from behind the supply closet door. You, the CEO barked, pointing a long finger at the boy. Come here. Matteo's legs felt wobbly, but he stepped forward. Rosa quickly moved to stand beside her son, her hand protectively on his shoulder. Who is this child? Mr. Blackwood demanded. My son, Matteo, Rosa answered quietly. I'm sorry, sir. My babysitter got sick, and I had no one else to watch him. Mr. Blackwood studied Matteo with those cold gray eyes. The boy was small for 12, with messy black hair and intelligent dark eyes that seemed to see everything. You look smart, kid, Mr. Blackwood said suddenly. Smarter than these useless adults around here. Matteo didn't answer. His mother had taught him to be polite, but something about this man felt dangerous. I have an idea, Mr. Blackwood continued, a strange smile spreading across his face. Everyone else in this building is completely incompetent. Maybe a child can figure out what these grown-ups can't. Rosa's grip tightened on Matteo's shoulder. Sir, what do you mean? Mr. Blackwood pointed at the broken elevator. Fix it, kid. You've got 1 hour before my meeting. The lobby went silent. Everyone stared at the 12-year-old boy and the broken elevator that had stumped the building's engineers. Rosa stepped forward, her voice shaking. Mr. Blackwood, please. He's just a child. This is dangerous, and he doesn't know anything about elevators. I don't care, Mr. Blackwood shouted. I'm desperate, and desperate times call for desperate measures. The boy looks smart. Let's see if he can prove it. Matteo looked up at his mother's worried face, then at the broken elevator, then at all the people. Watching him, his hands were shaking, but deep inside, something clicked. He had always been good with machines. Maybe he could help. It's okay, Mom, Matteo whispered. I want to try. What Mr. Blackwood didn't know was that this quiet boy carried a secret that would change everything. What Rosa didn't know was that her son's brilliant mind was about to unlock a mystery 13 years in the making. And what none of them knew was that fixing this elevator would reveal a truth that would shake the very foundations of Pinnacle Tower itself. Mateo walked slowly toward the broken elevator, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Every person in the fancy lobby was staring at him. Their whispers filled the air like buzzing bees. "This is crazy," muttered Sarah from the accounting department. "Making a 12-year-old fix an elevator? What if he gets hurt?" "Blackwood has lost his mind," whispered Tom from security. "That poor kid doesn't stand a chance." Rosa followed close behind her son, her hands trembling. She wanted to grab Mateo and run far away from this cold, mean building. But they needed this job. Without it, they would have no home, no food, no future. Mr. Blackwood checked his expensive gold watch and tapped his foot impatiently. "You have 59 minutes, kid. Don't waste my time." Mateo knelt down in front of the elevator control panel. The metal cover was held on by 4 screws. He looked up at his mother with worried eyes. "I don't have any tools, Mom." Rosa felt her heart sink. Of course he didn't have tools. He was just a child with a backpack full of school supplies. But then Mateo did something that made Rosa gasp. He unzipped a secret pocket in his backpack and pulled out a small toolkit. Tiny screwdrivers, wire strippers, and electrical testers gleamed in the lobby lights. "Mateo," Rosa whispered, "where did you get those?" "I've been saving my lunch money," Mateo said quietly. "I bought them at the hardware store piece by piece. I like fixing things." Rosa stared at her son in amazement. How had she not known about this? When did her little boy become so interested in machines and tools? Mateo carefully removed the screws from the control panel. His small fingers worked like a surgeon's, gentle but sure. The cover came off, revealing a maze of colorful wires, circuit boards, and blinking lights. "Oh my," breathed Jennifer, Mr. Blackwood's assistant. "Look how carefully he's working." The crowd of office workers grew larger. People came down from other floors to watch the strange sight of a child trying to fix their building's main elevator. Mateo studied the wires and circuits for several long minutes. His dark eyes moved back and forth, following the path of electricity through the complex system. Rosa watched her son's face change. The worried, scared look disappeared. Now he looked focused and confident, like he knew exactly what he was doing. "The problem is here," Mateo said, pointing to a thick black wire near the bottom of the panel. "This wire got burned when lightning hit the building yesterday during the storm." Mr. Blackwood rolled his eyes. "Whatever, just fix it and stop talking." But the other people leaned in closer, impressed by how smart the boy sounded. "See this brown mark?" Mateo continued, showing the wire to his mother. "That's what happens when too much electricity goes through a wire. It's like when you toast bread too long and it gets black." Rosa nodded, even though she didn't really understand. But she could see that her son knew what he was talking about. For the next 45 minutes, Mateo worked in complete silence. He carefully removed the burned wire and replaced it with a new one from his toolkit. Then he tested other parts of the system, checking connections and cleaning contacts. The lobby was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Even Mr. Blackwood stopped pacing and watched the boy work. Mateo's small hands moved like magic inside the electrical panel. He twisted wires together perfectly, used his tiny screwdriver to tighten screws, and tested circuits with his electrical meter. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he never stopped working. "How does he know all this?" whispered Dr. Martinez from the medical offices on the 3rd floor. "I've never seen anything like it," said Mrs. Chen from the law firm. "He's working like a master electrician." Rosa felt tears building in her eyes. She had always known Mateo was special and smart, but this was incredible. Her son was doing something that grown men with college degrees couldn't do. Finally, Mateo sat back on his heels and wiped his hands on his jeans. "I think it's fixed now." The crowd held its breath as Mateo pressed the elevator call button. Nothing happened. Mr. Blackwood's face turned purple with rage. "I knew this was a waste of time. You useless little—" Ding! The elevator doors slid open smoothly and quietly. The lights inside were bright and cheerful. The floor was level and perfect. The lobby exploded with cheers and applause. People clapped and shouted with joy. Sarah, from accounting, hugged Mrs. Chen. Tom from security gave Mateo a thumbs up. "Amazing!" cried Dr. Martinez. "Simply amazing!" "That boy is a genius!" shouted someone from the back of the crowd. Mateo pressed the buttons for different floors. The elevator glided up and down like it was brand new. Every light worked perfectly. Every sound was smooth and quiet. "Impossible," Mr. Blackwood muttered under his breath, but even he couldn't deny what everyone had just seen. Rosa rushed to her son and wrapped him in the biggest hug of his life. "Mateo, you did it. You actually did it." "It wasn't that hard, Mom," Mateo said with a shy smile. "Machines make sense to me. They're like puzzles, and I'm good at puzzles." The crowd began to break up as people headed back to their offices. They patted Mateo on the head and told him how amazing he was. For a few beautiful minutes, Rosa felt proud and happy. Then Mr. Blackwood stepped forward, and the good feeling disappeared. "Fine," he said coldly. "You fixed it. Now get out of my lobby. Rosa, get back to work. And keep that kid quiet. I have important business to handle." Just like that, the magic was over. Mr. Blackwood walked away without saying thank you, without showing any kindness, without caring that a 12-year-old boy had just saved his million-dollar business meeting. Rosa felt her heart break as she watched her son's shoulders slump. The proud, confident boy disappeared, replaced by a sad child who had just learned that some people are mean, no matter what you do for them. "Come on, mijo," Rosa whispered, taking Mateo's hand. "Let's go home." As they walked toward the building exit, Rosa noticed something strange. Her son kept looking back at Mr. Blackwood with eyes that seemed much older and wiser than 12 years old. "Mom," Mateo said quietly, "why do some people have so much anger in their hearts?" Rosa didn't know how to answer. She just squeezed her son's hand tighter and wondered what other secrets her brilliant boy was hiding. What she didn't know was that Mateo Silva wasn't just any janitor's son. And what Mr. Blackwood didn't know was that the boy he had just treated so cruelly carried a secret that connected them in ways nobody could imagine. The elevator was fixed, but the biggest mystery of all was just beginning. The small apartment felt warm and cozy after the cold marble floors of Pinnacle Tower. Rosa moved around their tiny kitchen, making Mateo's favorite dinner: yellow rice with black beans and sweet plantains. The smell filled their home like a hug. But something was wrong. Mateo sat at their little table, staring out the window at the city lights. Below, he barely touched his food, even though Rosa had used the last of their good spices to make it special. "Mijo," Rosa said softly, sitting down beside her son. "You haven't eaten anything. Are you feeling sick?" Mateo looked up at his mother with sad, dark eyes. "Mom, why was that man so mean to you today?" Rosa's heart ached like someone had squeezed it tight. She had hoped Mateo was too young to understand Mr. Blackwood's cruelty. But her son saw everything, felt everything, just like she did. Some people think they're better than others because they have money, Rosa explained, taking Mateo's small hands in hers. But you know what? You're worth 1,000 Harrison Blackwoods. You have something he will never have. What's that? Mateo asked. A kind heart, Rosa whispered, kissing his forehead, and a brain that can do amazing things. Did you see how proud those people were of you today? You fixed something that grown-up engineers couldn't fix. Mateo smiled a little, but the sadness didn't leave his eyes. I wish I could help you more, Mom. I see how tired you are every day. Rosa felt tears burn behind her eyes. Her sweet boy worried about her when he should be thinking about toys and games like other kids his age. You help me every day just by being you, she said. Every time you smile, every time you show me one of your drawings, every time you hug me. That's all the help I need. But that wasn't completely true, and Rosa knew it. After Mateo went to bed, Rosa sat alone at their kitchen table. She pulled out a wrinkled letter from her purse, a letter she had been hiding from her son for 2 weeks. The return address said, City General Hospital. Inside, Dr. Kim's words were printed in neat, serious letters. Rosa had read them so many times she knew them by heart. The test results show concerning changes in your brain tissue, the headaches and dizziness. You've been experiencing are symptoms of a serious condition. You need to come in for more tests immediately. Rosa folded the letter and put it back in her purse. She couldn't afford more tests. She couldn't afford to miss work. And she definitely couldn't afford to tell Mateo that his mother might be very sick. Every morning, Rosa woke up with a pounding headache. Every afternoon, the world spun around her like a carnival ride, but she kept working her 3 jobs, cleaning Pinnacle Tower in the morning, scrubbing floors at the hospital at night, and doing laundry for rich families on weekends. Mateo needed new school clothes. Their rent was due next week. The refrigerator was making strange noises, and Rosa prayed it wouldn't break before she could save money to fix it. Rosa looked toward Mateo's bedroom, where soft light glowed under his door. He was probably doing homework that was too easy for him, or drawing pictures of machines that looked like they belonged in science museums. Her son was so smart, it sometimes scared her. When other kids his age were playing video games, Mateo was reading books about engineering and electronics. When other kids were watching cartoons, Mateo was taking apart old radios to see how they worked. He could be anything, Rosa whispered to herself. A doctor, an engineer, a scientist. He could change the world. But how could a janitor's son become those things? Rosa had dropped out of school when she was 16 to work and help her sick grandmother. She didn't know about college applications or scholarships or any of the things smart kids needed. All she knew was cleaning floors and scrubbing toilets and making other people's lives easier while her own life got harder every day. Rosa walked quietly to Mateo's bedroom door and peeked inside. Her son was sitting at his small desk, working on math problems that looked like puzzles made of numbers and symbols. "These are too easy," Mateo muttered to himself. "I wish they gave us harder ones." Rosa's heart broke a little more. Her brilliant boy was bored in school because the work was too simple. He needed special classes, special teachers, special opportunities that cost money she would never have. Fadidu. Headache hit Rosa like a hammer. She gripped the door frame and waited for the spinning to stop. What would happen to Mateo if she got too sick to work? They had no family, no savings, no safety net. Rosa thought about all the rich people she cleaned up after. Their kids went to expensive private schools and had tutors and took trips to other countries. Their biggest worry was which college to choose from the many that wanted them. Meanwhile, her genius son sat in their tiny apartment, solving problems that would challenge high school students, dreaming of inventions that could help the world. "It's not fair," Rosa whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. She walked back to the kitchen and made herself a cup of tea with hands that shook slightly. The letter from Dr. Kim felt heavy in her purse, like it was made of stone instead of paper. Rosa had always been strong. She had raised Mateo by herself, worked multiple jobs, and never complained about being tired or scared. But tonight, she felt small and helpless. "Please," she prayed quietly, looking up at the ceiling. "I don't need much. Just let me live long enough to see my son grow up. Let me find a way to give him the chances he deserves." The city lights twinkled outside their window like stars that had fallen to earth. Somewhere out there were people who could help bright kids like Mateo. Rosa just didn't know how to find them. What Rosa didn't know was that tomorrow would bring a phone call that would change everything. What she didn't know was that the mysterious caller would know secrets about Mateo's father, secrets that Rosa had kept locked in her heart for 13 long years. And what she didn't know was that the truth about Mateo's brilliant mind was about to unlock a door that had been closed since the day her son was born. The biggest mystery wasn't just beginning, it was about to explode into the light, revealing connections that would shock everyone, especially Harrison Blackwood himself. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, with thick clouds hanging over the city like a heavy blanket. Rosa felt dizzy as she stepped off the bus at Pinnacle Tower, but she forced herself to walk straight and tall. She couldn't afford to look weak, not when she needed this job so badly. The lobby buzzed with excitement. Everyone was talking about Saturday's miracle, how a 12-year-old boy had fixed the million-dollar elevator that stumped all the experts. "I still can't believe it," Sarah from accounting told her friend near the coffee machine. "That kid was amazing. He worked like a real engineer." "Too bad Blackwood was such a jerk to him," replied Tom from security. "The boy deserved a reward, not rudeness." Rosa smiled sadly as she pushed her cleaning cart toward the elevator, the same elevator her brilliant son had repaired. She pressed the button and watched the doors slide open smoothly. Every time she rode it now, she would think of Mateo's small hands working magic on those complicated wires. The morning passed slowly. Rosa cleaned offices on the 23rd floor, trying to ignore the pounding in her head. She scrubbed conference room tables and emptied trash cans, moving carefully so the spinning world would stay still. Around 10:30, Jennifer, Mr. Blackwood's assistant, came looking for her. The young woman looked nervous and confused. Rosa?" Jennifer said, twisting her hands together. "There's someone on the phone asking for you. He says it's urgent." Rosa's heart jumped into her throat. Nobody ever called her at work. The only people who had this number were Mateo's school and the hospital where she worked nights. "Is it about my son?" Rosa asked, panic rising in her chest. "Is Mateo hurt?" No, Jennifer said quickly. "He asked for you specifically. He said he needs to talk to Rosa Silva about her son, but that Mateo is fine. Rosa followed Jennifer to the reception desk, her hands shaking. Who could possibly want to talk to her about Mateo? And how did they know where she worked? Jennifer handed her the phone. Take all the time you need. Rosa took a deep breath and lifted the phone to her ear. Hello? Is this Rosa Silva? Asked a deep, kind voice. The man sounded educated and gentle. Nothing like the harsh voices she usually heard at Pinnacle Tower. Yes, this is Rosa. Who is this? My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I'm calling about your son, Mateo. Rosa gripped the phone so tight her knuckles turned white. What about him? Is he in trouble at school? No, Rosa. He's not in trouble. I'm calling because his teacher sent me a video of him fixing that elevator on Saturday. Rosa's mind spun. A video? What video? Someone recorded Mateo working on the elevator and posted it online. Rosa, I need you to understand something very important. Your son isn't just smart, he's extraordinarily gifted. What he did Saturday was impossible for most adults. Tears filled Rosa's eyes. I know he's special, but I don't understand why you're calling me. I run a program for gifted children, Dr. Webb explained. We find kids like Mateo and give them full scholarships to the best schools in the country. Everything paid for: tuition, books, housing, food. Then we help them get into places like MIT or Harvard. Rosa sank into Jennifer's chair, her legs too weak to hold her up. We can't afford anything like that, Dr. Webb. I work 3 jobs just to pay rent. Rosa, you're not listening, Dr. Webb said gently. Everything would be completely free. We have sponsors who pay for everything because they believe in helping brilliant children. Rosa started crying. She tried to be quiet, but the tears wouldn't stop. After 13 years of struggle, someone was offering her son the future she could never give him. There's something else, Rosa, Dr. Webb continued, his voice becoming more serious. Something about Mateo's father. Rosa's blood turned to ice. She had never told anyone about Mateo's father. Not her friends, not her neighbors, not even Mateo himself. How do you know about... She whispered, unable to finish the sentence. That's complicated, Dr. Webb said. Rosa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. 13 years ago, did you work as a housekeeper for a wealthy family? Rosa's hand flew to her mouth. How could this stranger know about her past? Yes, she breathed. The Wellington family? Rosa couldn't speak. She just nodded, then remembered. He couldn't see her. Yes, she whispered. Rosa, there's someone who has been looking for you and Mateo for a very long time. Someone who made a terrible mistake 13 years ago and has regretted it every day since. Rosa's heart pounded so hard she thought it might explode. That's impossible. He told me to disappear. He said he never wanted to see me again. People change, Rosa. And when a man finds out his son is a genius who can fix elevators like a master engineer, he starts asking questions. Rosa felt the world spinning around her, but this time it wasn't because of her illness. You're saying he knows about Mateo? He's known for a while. And Rosa, there's something else you need to know. Something about why this is all happening now. What do you mean? Dr. Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very serious. Rosa, the man who treated you and Mateo so badly on Saturday, Harrison Blackwood, He's connected to Mateo's father in ways you can't imagine. Ways that go back 20 years. Rosa felt like she was falling through space. I don't understand. Harrison Blackwood destroyed your family once before, Rosa. But he doesn't know that the boy he was cruel to on Saturday is connected to the biggest mistake of his life. Dr. Webb, you're scaring me. What are you talking about? Meet me today. After work. There's someone who wants to see you and Mateo. Someone who has been waiting 13 years for this moment. Rosa's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. Who? Who wants to see us? But Dr. Webb had already hung up. Rosa stared at the phone in her hand, her mind racing with questions and fears. 13 years ago, she had fallen in love with someone who broke her heart. 13 years ago, she had been young and foolish, and believed in fairy tales. Now, this stranger was telling her that the past was catching up with them. That Harrison Blackwood was somehow connected to the father Mateo had never known, and that someone had been looking for them all this time. Rosa had spent 13 years protecting her son from the truth about his father. Now, it seemed like the truth was coming to find them whether she wanted it or not. Rosa's hands shook as she stirred sugar into her coffee at the small cafe downtown. She had left work early, telling Jennifer she felt sick, which wasn't really a lie. Her stomach had been twisted in knots since Dr. Webb's phone call. The cafe was quiet and cozy, with soft music playing and the smell of fresh bread in the air. But Rosa felt like she was sitting in the middle of a thunderstorm, waiting for lightning to strike. Dr. Webb walked through the door at exactly 4 o'clock. He was a tall, gentle-looking man, with kind brown eyes and graying hair. He wore a simple blue suit and carried a leather briefcase that looked old and well-used. "Rosa," he said softly, approaching her table. Rosa nodded, not trusting her voice to work properly. Dr. Webb sat down across from her and ordered tea from the waitress. For a long moment, they just looked at each other in silence. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Webb finally said. "I know this must be very confusing and scary for you." "Dr. Webb?" Rosa whispered. "How do you know about my past? How do you know about Mateo's father?" Dr. Webb opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder filled with papers and photographs. "Rosa, 13 years ago, you worked as a housekeeper for the Wellington family. You fell in love with their son, Alexander." Rosa's eyes filled with tears at the sound of that name. Alexander. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud in 13 years, but she had never forgotten it. Alexander was 22 years old, Dr. Webb continued gently. He was brilliant, kind, and studying to become an engineer. But he was also engaged to marry someone his parents had chosen for him. Rosa nodded, remembering the pain like it was yesterday. "When I told him I was pregnant, he panicked. He said his family would never accept me. He gave me money and told me to disappear." "That was the biggest mistake of his life," Dr. Webb said firmly. "Rosa, Alexander never stopped thinking about you and Mateo. He's spent years looking for you both." Rosa shook her head, confusion and old hurt mixing together in her heart. "That's impossible. He's probably married now with his own family. Rich people like him don't think about maids they left behind." Dr. Webb pulled a photograph from his folder and placed it on the table. Rosa gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. The photo showed a man in an expensive suit standing at a podium, giving a speech. He was older now, with silver threads in his dark hair and lines around his eyes. But Rosa would know that face anywhere. "This was taken last week at a charity dinner," Dr. Webb said quietly. "Rosa, do you recognize him?" Rosa's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Alexander." "Dr. Alexander Wellington," Dr. Webb said, "one of the world's most brilliant engineers. He invented the technology that makes modern elevators work safely. He's won awards, written books, and changed how buildings are constructed all over the world." Rosa stared at the photograph, her mind spinning. The scared young man who had broken her heart had become one of the most important engineers on Earth. "He became an engineer?" she asked, tears rolling down her cheeks. "The best in the world." And Rosa, when news spread about a 12-year-old boy who could fix elevators like a master engineer, Alexander knew immediately. Matteo gets his incredible brain from his father. Rosa felt like she was drowning in memories and emotions. "But I don't understand. How does this connect to Mr. Blackwood? Why did you mention him on the phone?" Dr. Webb's expression grew very serious. He pulled out another photograph, this one much older, showing two young men with their arms around each other's shoulders, smiling at the camera. 20 years ago, Alexander Wellington and Harrison Blackwood were best friends and business partners, Dr. Webb explained. They met in college and started a company together, inventing elevator safety systems. Rosa studied the photo. One of the young men was clearly Alexander, but the other— "That's Mr. Blackwood?" Rosa gasped. "He looks so different, so happy." "They were like brothers," Dr. Webb said sadly, "until Harrison did something terrible that destroyed their friendship forever." Rosa leaned forward, her heart pounding. "What did he do?" "He stole Alexander's designs and claimed them as his own. Every elevator system in Pinnacle Tower, every patent that made Harrison Blackwood rich, it all came from Alexander's brilliant mind." The Aihirku coffee cup slipped from Rosa's hands, clattering against the saucer. "You mean—" "Harrison Blackwood built his entire empire on technology he stole from Matteo's father," Dr. Webb said firmly. "And there's more, Rosa. Harrison knew exactly who you were the day you started working at Pinnacle Tower." Rosa felt the room spinning around her. "He knew?" "He recognized you immediately. Think about it, Rosa. Why do you think he's always been so cruel to you? Why has he treated you worse than any other employee?" The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place in Rosa's mind. The cold stares, the harsh words, the way Mr. Blackwood seemed to enjoy making her feel small and worthless. "He knew I was the woman who he thought ruined his friendship with Alexander," Rosa whispered. "Exactly. In Harrison's twisted mind, you were the person who distracted Alexander and caused their partnership to fall apart. He kept you working as a janitor because it amused him to have Alexander's former love scrubbing his floors." Rosa felt sick to her stomach. All these years, she had worked for the man who had destroyed her son's father. All these years, she had cleaned the offices built with money stolen from the man she had once loved. "Dr. Webb," Rosa said, her voice shaking, "does Alexander know where we are? Does he know about Saturday? About what Matteo did?" Dr. Webb smiled, for the first time since sitting down. "Rosa, Alexander has been following every story about the boy genius who fixed the elevator. He knows his son is brilliant, brave, and kind. And he knows that you raised Matteo to be an amazing young man." "What does he want?" Rosa asked, afraid to hope. "He wants to meet his son. He wants to make up for 13 years of missing birthdays and bedtime stories. He wants to give Mateo every opportunity in the world. And Rosa, Dr. Webb paused, looking directly into her eyes. He wants to tell you that he never stopped loving you, that letting you go was the stupidest thing he ever did, that he spent 13 years trying to become the man you deserved. Rosa burst into tears, not sad tears, but tears of joy and relief and overwhelming emotion. 13 years of raising Mateo alone, 13 years of wondering if his father ever thought about them, 13 years of struggling and hoping and praying. When? Rosa managed to say through her tears. When can we see him? Dr. Webb checked his watch. Actually, Rosa, he's waiting outside in the car. He didn't want to overwhelm you, but he's been hoping for this moment since the day you disappeared. Rosa's heart felt like it might burst. Her son was about to meet his father. Her brilliant, wonderful boy was going to learn that he came from love, not abandonment. But there was still one more shocking truth that nobody knew yet. One more connection that would rock Harrison Blackwood's world to its very foundations. The biggest revelation was still to come. The next morning, Rosa's hands shook as she pressed the elevator button at Pinnacle Tower. But this time, she wasn't alone. Mateo stood beside her, wearing his best school clothes and looking nervous but excited. Last night had been like a dream. Alexander Wellington, older, wiser, but still the kind man Rosa had fallen in love with, had wrapped his son in the gentlest hug. Mateo had stared at his father with wide, amazed eyes as Alexander explained how brilliant and special he was. "I've been looking for you both for so long," Alexander had whispered, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry I missed watching you grow up, Mateo. But I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again." Now they were riding the elevator that Mateo had fixed, the same elevator his father had designed the technology for 13 years ago. Rosa felt like she was living in a fairy tale. "Mom," Mateo said quietly, "I'm scared. What if Mr. Blackwood gets angry that we brought my father here?" Rosa squeezed her son's hand. "Don't worry, mijo. Today, everything changes." They reached the 50th floor, where Dr. Webb was waiting in the conference room. When the elevator doors opened, Rosa gasped. Alexander stood by the tall windows, looking out at the city he had helped build with his elevator. Technology. When he turned around, his face lit up with the biggest smile Rosa had ever seen. "My family," Alexander said softly, opening his arms. But before Rosa and Mateo could move, the conference room door exploded open. Harrison Blackwood stormed in, his face purple with rage. He looked older and meaner than ever, his gray hair messy, and his expensive suit wrinkled. "What is he doing in my building?" Blackwood snarled, pointing a shaking finger at Alexander. Alexander stood tall and calm. "Hello, Harrison. It's been a long time." Mateo moved closer to his mother, confused and frightened. "Mom, what's happening?" Rosa wrapped her arms around her son protectively. "It's okay, baby. Everything is going to be okay." Dr. Webb stepped forward, his briefcase in hand. "Harrison, I think it's time you learned the truth about the boy you were so cruel to on Saturday." Blackwood's cold eyes moved from Alexander to Rosa to Mateo. "I don't care about some janitor's brat. I want this thief out of my building." "Thief?" Alexander's voice was calm but strong. "That's interesting, coming from you, Harrison." Dr. Webb opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. Harrison, these are the original patents for elevator safety technology, all signed by Alexander Wellington, all dated 3 years before you claimed them as your own. Blackwood's face went white. Those are fake. We also have emails, recorded phone calls, and witness statements, Dr. Webb continued. 20 years of evidence proving that you stole Alexander's work and built your empire on lies. Rosa watched in amazement as the truth finally came out. The cruel man who had made her life miserable was being exposed as a fraud and a thief. But then, Alexander did something that shocked everyone. He walked over to his former best friend, his face full of sadness instead of anger. "Harrison," Alexander said gently, "I forgive you." Blackwood stared at him in disbelief. "What?" "I forgive you for stealing my work. I forgive you for destroying our friendship. I even forgive you for being cruel to the woman I love and the son I never knew I had." Tears ran down Rosa's cheeks. Even after everything Harrison had done, Alexander chose kindness over revenge. "But Harrison," Alexander continued, "there's something you need to know, something that will change how you see everything." Blackwood laughed bitterly. "Nothing you say matters anymore, Alexander. Your life is ruined, just like you ruined mine 20 years ago." Alexander shook his head sadly. "You still don't understand, do you? Harrison, look at this boy. Really, look at him." Everyone turned to stare at Mateo, who was holding his mother's hand tightly. "This 12-year-old child fixed your $1 million elevator in 1 hour, Alexander said. "He did something your best engineers couldn't do. He has a mind that works like mine did at his age." "So what?" Blackwood snapped. "He's just some smart kid." Dr. Webb pulled out one more document from his briefcase. "Harrison, this is Mateo's birth certificate. Take a look at the date." Blackwood grabbed the paper and read it. His face went from angry red to shocked white. 13 years ago, Doctor," Webb said quietly. 9 months after Rosa Silva stopped working as a housekeeper for the Wellington family. The room went completely silent. Blackwood stared at the birth certificate, then at Mateo, then at Alexander. "No," Blackwood whispered. "No, that's impossible." "Harrison," Alexander said gently, "meet my son, the boy you demanded fix your elevator, the child you were cruel to, the brilliant young man who inherited his engineering mind from me." Blackwood dropped the birth certificate like it was on fire. "This can't be happening." Mateo stepped forward, his young voice clear and brave. "Mr. Blackwood, you were mean to my mom and me, but my dad taught me that being mean back doesn't fix anything." Rosa had never been more proud of her son. "You built your company using my father's ideas," Mateo continued, "but instead of being angry, we want to help you do the right thing." Alexander knelt down to his son's level. "What do you think we should do, Mateo?" Mateo thought for a moment, his wise eyes moving between his father and the man who had stolen from him. "I think Mr. Blackwood should give back what he took," Mateo said simply. "And then maybe you two can be friends again, like you used to be." Blackwood stared at the 12-year-old boy in amazement. After all the cruelty and anger, this child was offering forgiveness and friendship. Dr. Webb smiled. "Mateo, you're not just brilliant with machines. You're wise about people, too." Alexander stood up and faced his former friend one last time. "Harrison, My son is right. It's time to make things right. Not just for us, but for him. Harrison. Blackwood looked around the room, at the evidence of his crimes, at the family he had tried to destroy, at the boy whose genius had exposed the truth. For the first time in 20 years, Harrison Blackwood began to cry. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. What have I done?" Alexander put his hand on Harrison's shoulder. "You made mistakes, old friend, but it's not too late to fix them." Rosa watched in wonder as her son brought together a family torn apart by greed and pride. Mateo had done more than fix an elevator. He had fixed broken hearts and ruined friendships. "Does this mean we're going to be okay?" Mateo asked, looking up at his parents. Alexander and Rosa both knelt down and hugged their son tight. "More than okay, mijo," Rosa whispered. "We're going to be perfect." As security prepared to escort the humbled Harrison Blackwood away to face the consequences of his actions, Mateo looked up at his father with bright, hopeful eyes. "Dad, can you teach me how to build elevators that fly?" Alexander laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in 13 years. "Son, I think you're going to teach me things I never imagined." The boy who had fixed an elevator had just fixed everything else, too. Golden sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Wellington family's beautiful new home. Rosa hummed softly as she watered the flowers in her garden. Real flowers that she owned, not ones she cleaned around in other people's houses. She was healthy now, thanks to the best doctors and medicine that love could buy. The headaches were gone. The dizziness was just a bad memory. And every morning, she woke up, grateful to be alive. "Mom!" called a familiar voice from inside the house. "Come see what I made." Rosa smiled and walked into what used to be the guest bedroom, but was now Mateo's laboratory. Her 14-year-old son stood proudly next to a small robot that looked like a friendly metal puppy. "Watch this," Mateo said, pressing a button on his tablet. The robot walked across the lab table, wagging its metal tail. When it reached Rosa, it sat down and said in a tiny, cheerful voice, "Good morning, Rosa. You look beautiful today." Rosa laughed and clapped her hands. "Mateo, that's amazing! You made it say that?" "I programmed it to give compliments," Mateo grinned. "Everyone needs to hear nice things every day." In the distance, Rosa could hear Alexander talking on the phone in his home office. He was probably discussing his latest invention, elevators that could think for themselves and fix their own problems. Alexander had kept his promise. The family was together now, and they were more than okay. They were happy in ways Rosa had never dreamed possible. After Harrison Blackwood's company fell apart, Alexander had taken over and turned it into something good. Instead of just making money, Wellington Industries now created inventions to help people. They built elevators for hospitals that could move extra gently for sick patients. They designed lifts for elderly people who couldn't climb stairs. They made the world a better place, one machine at a time. "Mom," Mateo said, his voice getting serious, "do you ever think about Mr. Blackwood?" Rosa sat down on the lab stool next to her son. Harrison Blackwood had lost everything. His company, his money, his reputation. But instead of going to jail, Alexander had given him a choice. He could face criminal charges, or he could spend 5 years doing community service, helping poor kids learn about science and engineering. Harrison had chosen to help others. Rosa heard he was actually good at teaching when he remembered too. Be kind instead of cruel. I think about him sometimes, Rosa answered honestly. I hope he's learning to be happy by helping people instead of hurting them. Mateo nodded thoughtfully. Dad says that hurt people often hurt other people, but healing people help heal other people. Rosa marveled at her son's wisdom. Mateo was not only brilliant with machines, he understood hearts and feelings in ways that amazed everyone around him. "How's your new school?" Rosa asked. Mateo's face lit up. "It's incredible, Mom! Today we're designing robots that can help clean up ocean pollution. And tomorrow I get to work with Dr. Chen on elevators that use solar power." Rosa remembered when Mateo used to sit in her supply closet at Pinnacle Tower, bored and hiding. Now he attended the best science academy in the country, surrounded by other brilliant kids who understood his amazing mind. Alexander appeared in the laboratory doorway, home from his morning meetings. He was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of fancy suits now. Being happy had made him look younger and more relaxed. "How are my two favorite people?" he asked, kissing Rosa's cheek and ruffling Mateo's hair. "Dad, look!" Mateo showed off his robot companion. "I taught it to be encouraging." The robot looked up at Alexander with glowing blue eyes. "Hello, Alexander. You're the best dad in the world." Alexander laughed, a sound Rosa never got tired of hearing. "I don't know about that, but I'm definitely the luckiest." As the family sat down for lunch together, Rosa thought about how much had changed since that cold Saturday morning when a broken elevator changed their lives forever. She was no longer a tired janitor working 3 jobs. She was Alexander's wife, Mateo's mother, and a woman who spent her days volunteering at schools, teaching other struggling families that dreams really could come true. Mateo was no longer a lonely boy hiding in supply closets. He was a young inventor whose robots and machines were already making the world better. And Alexander was no longer a man haunted by the family he had lost. He was a father who never missed a bedtime story, a husband who brought Rosa flowers every Friday, and an inventor who used his gifts to help others. "Mateo," Alexander said during lunch, "what do you want to work on this afternoon?" Mateo's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I want to design an elevator that can take people to the moon." "Just to the moon?" Rosa teased. "Why not Mars?" "Oh, that's next week's project," Mateo said seriously, making his parents laugh. Later, that evening, as Rosa tucked Mateo into bed, her son asked the question that had become their nightly tradition. "Mom, are we really safe now, forever and always?" Rosa kissed her son's forehead and smoothed his dark hair. "Forever and always, mijo. No matter what happens, we're a family now, and families stick together." "Even when I'm old and building spaceships?" Mateo asked sleepily. "Especially then," Rosa whispered. As she turned off the light and closed Mateo's bedroom door, Rosa found Alexander waiting for her in the hallway. He pulled her into his arms and held her close. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "I'm thinking about elevators," Rosa said with a smile. "How one broken elevator brought us all back together." Alexander kissed the top of her head. "It wasn't the elevator that brought us together, Rosa. It was love. Love always finds a way." They walked hand in hand to their bedroom, past family, photos that showed birthday parties and holidays, and ordinary Tuesday afternoons that had become precious because they were shared. Sometimes Rosa still couldn't believe this was her life. Sometimes she woke up thinking she was still in that tiny apartment. still worried about rent and medicine and giving Matteo the future he deserved. But then she would hear her son laughing in his laboratory, or feel Alexander's hand in hers, or smell the flowers in her own garden, and she would remember that fairy tales really do come true. Not because of magic, or wishes, or luck, but because of love, forgiveness, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. And sometimes, the people who seem weakest hold the most power to change the world. Like a 12-year-old boy who fixed more than just an elevator. He fixed hearts, healed friendships, and proved that kindness is the strongest force in the universe. And that's how one broken elevator brought a family back together and proved that kindness is the most powerful force in the world. Matteo showed us that being smart isn't just about fixing machines. It's about fixing hearts, too. Sometimes the smallest acts of love can change everything. Where are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love hearing from our amazing listeners all around the world. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that everyone deserves a second chance, please hit that like button to spread some kindness today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because every time you do, you're helping us. Share more stories about love, forgiveness, and the magic that happens when good people stick together. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another heartwarming story that will make you believe in the power of family and hope. Remember, you might be small, but your kindness can move mountains, just like Matteo did. See you in the next story.